Right, anyone who's watched my videos in the past knows that I normally talk about beginner topics or give tips, etc. But today, I'm going to go into some of the more controversial, topics. And I'm going to talk about SARMs because people, for some reason, this is really popular lately. People have asked me in person, people that just like going to the gym, they're not looking at taking steroids or SARMs, etc. But they've noticed it on Instagram or they've noticed it on TikTok, like random things. SARMs stand for selective androgen receptor modulators, and the first thing I'd like to put out there is they are performance enhancing drugs. They're active substances. It's not like you're buying creatine from over the counter, something very mild. They are actually they're drugs. So for instance, one of the most popular ones you hear about, Ostarine, it was developed for osteoporosis as an anti-muscle wasting drug. So some of them, they all, well, I guess they all do what they say on the tin. So why would people take SARMs as opposed to steroids, and why would, in general, why would people take SARMs? Well, the thing is, on paper, there's a lot of research behind some of them. Like, some of them are very promising. Like I said, with Ostarine, I believe it went through quite a few trials, and it's proven to do the job that it says it does. But I feel like a lot of the reasons they've become popular is because for the wrong reasons. So while I agree they work, obviously I've used Ostarine and it works, but they've become popular because of the legality status of them. That's why. So I feel like people see them and they think, oh, this is legal, I can buy this, so surely it's not very potent. It might work, but it's probably really safe. But I don't care how people feel, I don't care what people say anecdotally. You look at blood work for these drugs and they still affect you like anabolic steroids would, so you shouldn't go into it thinking, yes, they are safe. If you look at the back of a lot of them, they do say that they're experimental drugs, it's early days. None of them have really been passed through all the clinical trials, so you can never guarantee what you're taking is safe. It's true. So I feel like that's one of the reasons they've become popular. People see it and there's like a false sense of security around it. What would I actually gain? What would happen if I took them? So it depends on what you're taking. So there's so many SARMs out there. Ostarine, as I said earlier, probably the most common drug in terms of SARMs, one of the most widely researched. I find that Ostarine has a really good effect on body recomposition. So you do find that you look leaner. Your strength goes up. It's perfect for maintaining strength during a cut. But the one thing I want to point out, and I'm not trying to make this a video of like, you should take this over this, I'm not even going to comment on that, but the one thing that I need to point out is that a lot of people who are successfully using SARMs aren't using SARMs as a standalone. You can use Ostarine as a standalone, but if you watch most people who actually successfully use SARMs, they add them to a cycle. Same with any oral steroid, you should really have a testosterone base. So that's something to consider. I wouldn't expect people to go out there and say, I'm going to take all these different SARMs, that is my cycle. You should understand that generally people that are successfully taking them, i.e. transform their physique majorly, they've got other stuff in the background. You can't put it down to the SARM. But obviously, you're going to gain more than someone who is training naturally if all the factors are the same. The thing you really need to remember, which is, it kind of goes without saying, but I guess you have to say it, is that everything is independent to each person. So those people that say there's low side effects to any drug, sometimes, okay, compared to other drugs, the side effects may be lower, but a lot of side effects are genetical. For instance, hair loss. People generally only lose hair on cycles when they are genetically prone to hair loss. So you might have that friend who takes like 10 different drugs and he gets big and he's like, fuck, this is amazing, man, I've had no side effects, I literally don't feel anything. And then you could take one of them and you could literally shed, or your testosterone could literally just plummet. A lot of these side effects are genetic to each person. And that's why when you read logs, you sometimes get really weird fucking side effects that you've never seen before. You get people who say, like, I took this drug and this happened, and everyone's like, that doesn't happen on Ostarine, that's not possible. But it is. It's just that genetically most people have a different reaction. would you still need to use, a PCT, a post-cycle therapy, if you take SARMs? So post-cycle therapy, for those obviously who don't know, is effectively what you take after a steroid cycle to recover back to your normal testosterone hormone levels, etc. Would you still need them for SARMs? Because there's this misconception that SARMs are weaker, like I said, they're the gateway, so I don't need a PCT. For Ostarine, you normally will get away without a PCT, because generally it doesn't shut your T down that much, but there's a lot of SARMs out there where running a PCT is required or definitely recommended. So if it's something you're going to do, you definitely need to research into it. What are the takeaway points? Because obviously I didn't want to go into too much detail, I wanted it to be a long video, but when you're explaining to people who might not know at all, or have only just heard about SARMs, it's just too much info. So what are the takeaway points? Side effects, also, they do work. I hate those people who are like, they've been on anabolics for years, old school bodybuilders, and they're like, fuck SARMs, you're a pussy. Start injecting today if you want to get a good physique. SARMs are bullshit. No, SARMs work. They do work, and like I said, drugs like Ostarine, they're proven to work. There's a lot of research on drugs like that, they do work. So, they work. Another thing to consider is, just when you're looking at drugs like this, just don't take anything at face value. So, as I've said many times, you need to plan everything, and you need to understand that when you're taking drugs, when you're taking PEDs in particular, you still have to prepare for side effects or prepare for the worst. I hate those people you see who are like, I'm running 4 different things, and suddenly I feel like I might need PCT or, things like that, and you're like, well, why didn't you prepare? Why didn't you kind of consider to yourself that maybe I should run a PCT after this? So I would always say, be prepared. Don't just read someone else's like fucking log on it and be like, oh, this guy had great results doing this, everyone's unique. You need to think about it. If anyone would like me to actually talk about individual ones, I could do that, but I wanted to weigh in on this because obviously it's such like a weird subject, but it's come up a lot recently. It seems to be in the limelight. So anyway,